Stands for service. Sell service, also known as service sells. Everything we sell can be purchased on the internet. We are not in the financial products profession, we're in the financial services profession. I had a three-part service philosophy, and each part had three parts. Can you tell that I'm kind of obsessed with numbers at this point? Okay, so I would tell people when they become clients, you pay for service, you deserve service, and with me you'll get it. Okay? Three things. Now, what Becky and I strove to do was we wanted to provide service that was equal parts prompt or responsive, cheerful, and accurate. Got to have all three parts. If it's missing one part, you've let the client down. Okay? Now, to make it prompt, I had this thing that I was kind of obsessed with, and I tried to return 75% of calls and respond to 75% of emails the same day I received them. 95%, in other words, 19 out of 20, by the next business day, and then everybody by the second business day. And with rare exceptions, I was able to do that. So that's the service. Politely persistent. This is huge for me. Early last month, we had some snow here in the area, and I got a text from a prospect who had a lunch scheduled with in the 30th and Troost area, and he said maybe we should reschedule lunch because of the snow. And I just texted back, yeah, I'm not supposed to text, but it wasn't business related. Compliance. Everywhere I go, people concerned with compliance. So I said, that's fine, but I'll be there, and I've got the time blocked off, so if you, okay. We had to go to 4 restaurants to find the one that was open, okay? Politely persistent. Now, I did not sell that man anything. He's still a prospect, he's a securities prospect, so I'll give you his info Friday. But that's the kind of polite persistence that has helped me, and I think it'll help you. Once I found a product that I thought suited my client, I would try to sell that product until they told me to stop trying to sell them that product, or until they bought it, okay? And once I found someone I wanted to work with, I thought could help me, and I could help him or her, I kept calling on him or her until they told me, never call me again, you bum. So be politely persistent. That's the P in spoil. Go on, Chris.
Yep.
Only do what only you can do. I learned this at some sort of a business conference about 5 or 10 years ago, and it's the only thing I took away from that conference. Okay, I would highly recommend you go to one of these conferences, at least one a year, but not more than 2 a year. You don't want to become a professional conference goer, where all you do is get all dressed up and go to meetings with producers who aren't going to buy anything from you, but you do have to take some time out to sharpen the saw, so to speak, okay? And so I go to this two-night conference, and of course, I always like it better if someone else is paying my way, and that happens sometimes, but sometimes like the Ed Slott IRA conference, well worth the money. I plugged that ever since going. Ed Slott IRA conference. Anyway, and I don't know if I'm going to get that at the keynote address or during a networking thing, but what you need to do is find your superpower in this profession and spend as much time as you can doing that and hire out everything else. Okay? Only do what only you can do and hire people to do the other stuff. Okay? So that's the O. I love this because it's 10 words and every word has 2 letters. Now, it's really, if it is to be, it is up to God, but it kind of ruins the 2-letter thing. So this is as old as the hills. If it is to be, it is up to me. In the NFL, the NBA, or Major League Baseball, if you have one good year, you're basically set for life. Okay? This is not like that. The analogy is you're on the PGA Tour, and if you don't play well Thursday and Friday, you don't play Saturday and Sunday, and you don't make any money. So you have to be determined that if this is what you were made to do, and I feel this is what I was made to do, nothing's going to stop you. okay? If Ohio National changes radically, you just pivot, you just change, okay? You change with them, or you find something else that is aligned to you. If ONESCO changes drastically, if your manager makes unreasonable demands on you, if the tax law changes your bread and butter product, whatever, just be determined to succeed, and it's going to be you patting yourself on the back. Yeah, you'll have a lot of help along the way, but I thought of that 10-word mantra many times over the years, and it'll work well for you. Okay, L is huge. Okay, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them proportionately. Okay, most salespeople, when I started in the 80s, they thought that whoever talked the most won. It isn't that way. Okay, we had this client thing Friday, about 80 people came, and I did a 15-minute talk. It was 17 minutes because 2 minutes of crying. But anyway, afterwards people said, I didn't know that about you. Well, when I meet with people, it wasn't about me. I'm not going to talk about me. Why? What? You know, I'm trying to help them, and I do active listening. Think about it. You probably had a speech class in college, maybe even in high school. Did you have a listening class? Of course not. Active listening, this is the hard part. A lot of times when we're having a conversation with someone, we're just waiting for that person to stop talking. And we are thinking about what we're going to say when they stop talking. Active listening, all I'm doing is listening. Okay? Remember, 2 interview close, 95% closing rate, no hard closing techniques. But if I listened in that opening appointment, they'd tell me what they were going to buy. They would tell me. Okay? And then I came back a week later and I signed them up. It is so hard though not to think about what you're going to say. Okay? So active listening, and what I would lean forward and I would look at the person's lips. Okay? Because of course you understand the words better if you're looking at their lips. Now the first book I'll plug, How to Win Friends and Influence People. My dad had me read this when I was 16 years old. Okay, I think it was the original printing. Even back then the pages were yellow. Okay? The takeaway from this crazy thing is, if you want to become known as a great conversationalist, ask questions and then listen. Everybody likes talking about themselves. Okay? And that's what I did. Okay? I'm going to talk less and sell more than impress them with how much I can say. So that's spoil. Service, persistence, only do what only you can do. If it is to be, it is up to me. Listen instead of talk. All right, 4 things. See how we're working our way down this little pyramid? See, a little fun? Okay. 2 ways to overcome insurance objections. These I've come up with, okay? Early on, when someone would say, I don't need $1.5 million of life insurance. And you've heard, I don't need blank. I just say, have you bought anything in the last week that you didn't need? And I'd wait. And they said, well, sure. Why'd you buy it? I wanted it. Was it a mistake to buy something you didn't need? No. Well, then why would buying insurance that you don't need be a mistake if you want it? Once I pointed that out, they never did the I don't need that much, or I don't need it. Because we buy stuff every day that we don't need, because we want. Why should insurance be any different? All right, I heard this a lot. They're 45 years old, you got kids in high school, you got 10 years left on the mortgage, and I'm showing them 10-year term, because when my kids are grown and the house is paid off, I'm going to drop it anyway. Right? You've heard that. Here's how I got them to buy a 20-year term. I was terrible at getting them to buy permanent insurance, but anyway. I'd say, well, when your house is paid for, the bank will let you drop the homeowner's insurance, won't they? Until it's paid for, you have to carry homeowner's insurance, okay? Once it's paid for, you can drop it. And then I'd say, will you drop your homeowner's insurance then? No. Why not? Well, it's a paid-for house. It's an asset. Oh, it's an asset that you might be paying $3,000 a year for homeowners insurance on a $300,000 house. But yeah, it might burn down. When the house is paid off and your kids are out of the house, you'll be 55, your income will probably be the highest it's ever been. You're planning on working another 10 years. Is that income an asset worth insuring? If you can pay a fraction of what that income is worth in the form of annual insurance premiums. Yeah, okay, I've just doubled the premium, doubled the commission, improved their level of financial security, made Ohio National a little happier, and I've completely told the truth. It's not some gimmick or something. Your income is an asset. I try to get everybody to carry their insurance and to buy insurance that they can carry until they plan to retire, at the very least. So, all right, 2 ways to overcome objections. Well, that's because I did this thing in about 5 minutes. Forget that one. That one's not there. Okay, overcome investment objections. Okay, Clay Blanton, bless his heart. He was getting ready to buy an investment with me, I think 25 grand in American Funds A shares at the 5% sales charge level. And he said this was 20 years ago. He said, now, how much is my sales tax again? I said, it's not sales tax, Clay, it's sales charge. He said, yeah, I know, but I lump it in there with sales tax. And I go, how so? He said, well, I never like paying sales tax, but I never let it keep me from buying something I want to buy. I said, Clay, can I use that? He said, yes. He died from Alzheimer's about 5 years later, but I've used the heck out of it. I'd say at the end of last year, I had about 125 million under my umbrella. Not that much now, because of Ukraine. And fully half of it was American Funds, almost all A shares, okay? So overcoming the sales charge, use the sales tax analogy. Say a friend of mine's client, it really works. If I want to buy something, I never like paying sales tax, but I never let it stop me from buying something I want to buy, okay? The second thing, lately, the index funds. Very, very popular. Oh, Vanguard has negative BIPS annual expense ratio. They pay me to, the race to the bottom. It's ridiculous. And I just say, when you buy an index fund, you're giving up. What do you mean? I'm saving money on fees here. When you buy an index fund, you know you will never beat the index. Never. And even the cheapest Vanguard fund has 5 bips, 10 bips. You'll always trail the index. With my actively managed funds, here's another plug. Jason, you owe me for this.
Yes, doing a good job.
This brochure, think no one can beat the index? Think again. This shows that almost all of their stock funds have beat the index net of expenses during the accumulation phase and the distribution phase. And so what I say is, with my actively managed fund, with my sales charge, with my annual expense ratio of about 65 bips, you have the potential to beat the index. I can show you when it's actually happened, you might not beat the index, but you might match the index with much less volatility. Wouldn't you like to try that? Okay, so just get them to think again. Okay, you're giving up. You won't even match the index. It's impossible. So I use those a lot. Now the Fabulous Four, again, acronym RREE. Again, when people were fee conscious, I would say you absolutely have to consider the expenses. You absolutely have to. But first you have to look at results. And for me, results is performance net of expenses. Okay? Results. How much risk did that fund take in achieving those results? Too often, you're proposing a broad portfolio with several different asset classes of holdings, and they're comparing your track record to the S&P 500. Well, that's not an apples-to-apples comparison. So I would point out my results, net of expenses, how much risk. I usually looked at standard deviation, or just how the dang thing did over on an annual basis. Look at the biggest dips, okay, and compare the index's biggest dips to your portfolio's biggest dips. But standard deviation is a good measure. Then I look at experience. We haven't had a true bear market since 2008. How many funds haven't even been around through that market, through that, let alone 01 and 02, and the crash of 87 and so forth. I want to look, and again, American Funds has the results. I want that fund to have done it more than once. Okay? And lastly, yes, you do have to look at expenses. But we never buy the cheapest car or the cheapest house, or if we're diagnosed with cancer, we don't look up the cheapest doctor. Why should we have the cheapest investment? Okay? So all the objections and stuff.
Can we go back?
No, we'll do questions if we have time. All right, 3 things. Most people are more risk averse than they'll admit, than their time horizon would indicate, and the risk tolerance score will reflect. You are more likely to lose a client after a down year than after a subpar up year. That's my opinion, my experience. Okay? As a result, I made extensive use of balanced funds throughout my career. ABALX, American Balanced A shares, one of my very favorites. ITRAX, T. Rowe Price Capital Appreciation, only available through the Voya Select Advantage, IRA type product. Vanguard has an excellent balanced fund and an excellent tax managed balanced fund. I know Brent uses Fidelity Income. I would often build those in kind of surreptitiously to a client's portfolio that would help buoy up the portfolio during a down year. Of course, it anchored the portfolio a little bit on an up year, but in my experience, where I lost clients is when they had losing years. Okay, so even if their score says they're risk tolerant, keep that in mind. And then anybody older than 40, when they come in and review, I would drumbeat this into their head. We're trying to beat the bank, we're trying to beat inflation, and we're trying to avoid losses. Okay? When people ask me how much money I manage, I say, I don't manage money. That's the 5-minute warning. I don't manage money, I manage my clients' expectations. That's what it's all about, okay? I mean, think about it. If you're sitting down with 2 identical investors, and with one you say, I hope that you average 9% a year over the next 5 years. It's possible. Look at and the other one you say, I hope that you'll average 6% per year over the next 5 years. 5 years hence, when you're meeting with the same 2 people and you're showing them 7% returns, the guy you overpromised to is going to be disappointed. The guy you underpromised to is going to think you've over-delivered. Okay? So you manage your expectations, and then hopefully you'll pleasantly surprise them. So I do that. Okay? And the 2 things we've already covered. Okay? That's the par and the investment risk spectrum. One thing, I'll tell you where I was in '96. I just qualified for the Chairman's Council with AUL. I was 36 going on 37. I had my youth. I had my health. I had my lovely wife. We had 3 kids. And I was in the top 10 out of, I think there were 400 agents back then. And so I was starting to make some money. And the awards night was on a Friday night in Copper Mountain, Colorado, a ski resort. And we came in one at a time, literally with a spotlight on us. I'm wearing one of these jacket type things that I have on today, and my wife's on my arm. And they announce my name and my accomplishments, and I'm walking in there, and there's literally a spotlight on me, and my predominant feeling was, why aren't I happier? I thought, is this as good as it gets? Because at that time, I hadn't filled the God-shaped hole in my heart that I think we're all born with. I was a man of action. I thought I could earn my way into heaven. by doing more good than bad, tipping the scales. And I think to that date I had, and even now I have, but when you factor in all the lousy thoughts that bounce around between my ears, I have no chance. I have no chance on my own. So literally, at the peak of my professional career, that night I began a spiritual journey that culminated about 4 years later. Between that time, we started going to our current church, Topeka Bible Church, and instead of just hearing the sermons, I started listening to them. And in fact, I thought that the pastor was talking right to me. It was hitting home. I read this. This is my second book I'll plug, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, about a journalist who did a very methodical, analytical journey like I did, and then became a Christian. And then this one I've read more recently, but it's just as good. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I'll loan you any of these books, but I'm writing down who I'm giving them to. And, okay? I want them back. This is excellent. This just proves that to say you're an atheist with all the evidence around us actually takes more faith than being a person of faith. It's phenomenal. These guys speak at a lot of college campuses. So it was a December morning, but to backtrack, have any of you guys heard of Third Day?
Yeah.
It's a Christian group. They have a song, I don't know the name of the song, but they have a line I love. It's, no matter who you are and no matter what you've done, there will come a day when you can't make it on your own. Wow. Okay? So one December morning, I told God I couldn't make it on my own. I asked Jesus to come into my life and the Holy Spirit to come into my heart. And that has made all the difference. Okay? My problems didn't go away. My sales didn't get bigger. In fact, 2001 was the first dip in income since '87. I think I was being tested. But I have a level of contentment, an inner peace, a joy that I never had, and I don't think I could have gotten any other way. And so I just kind of wanted to tell you about that journey I took with my wife's help, of course, and what it's meant to me. And if any of you aren't sure what's going to happen the moment after your heart stops beating, it really is more important than those other 14 things we talked about. Okay? So check out the book from me, visit with me. But they're just great books. And now the hole in my heart is full. At K-State, I tried to fill it with alcohol. I'm not happy to admit that. How I graduated, I don't know. Starting in '82, I started trying to fill that hole with work. My old manager said that I have a tremendous capacity for work. I think it's how he worded it. And then at that convention, starting in '96, I was coming into some money. None of it works. Family doesn't work. So anyway, that's about it. Nifty 50 is another thing. Any questions at all? I think I've got 1 minute left. About anything.
And I have the slide presentation. Is this okay to share with everybody?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. And I didn't cry, so I'm happy.